Hey guys, this is Ryan Reviews the Magic here, and today we're going to be breaking down Six Flags Discovery Kingdom like never before. If you've never been to my channel before, here's a little quick overview of my format of how I do park reviews. So for my park reviews, I split it into two halves, the vibes and the rides. The vibes being how fun the park is just to hang out in, and the rides being obviously the rides. So, in each of those categories, there's sort of two sub halves, which we'll dive a little bit more into when we jump into each half of that further out in the video. If you're planning your first trip to Six Flags Discovery Kingdom and want to know what the park's like, or you're just a coaster or theme park enthusiast in general who's wanting to just learn more about Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, please stick around and check out this video. First, we're going to dive into the vibes. As I said earlier, there's sort of two halves of each of the halves of my ranking system. So in the vibes, there's sort of the two halves are this. The first half is kind of your typical, more objective park elements. So we're looking at our theming and immersion, the layout, cleanliness, food, all of those kinds of things, the ambiance, the things you would expect in this sort of half of the category. The other half is what I like to call the sort of the park identity execution. So in this concept, what we're really looking into is the idea of how well does the park execute what it's trying to be. Being that sort of the idea that the best example I kind of think of to kind of illustrate this is the concept of a really good vanilla ice cream versus a really bad chocolate ice cream. You might like chocolate ice cream in general more, but a really good vanilla ice cream is often better than a really bad chocolate ice cream. And so while a more typical, like immersive Disney style theme park might, in general, always score much higher in the more objective park elements category than a more Six Flags style generic amusement park, sometimes a well executed generic amusement park is going to be better than a really poorly executed immersive theme park. And so that's why that half exists. And it exists specifically for certain parks, which as you watch more of my reviews, you'll probably be able to find out which parks that category really exists and why it exists. This is not really one of the parks that we're really worried about in that category, but it still exists for a reason. So let's get into those objective park elements of Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. First off, let's just look into the theming, immersion. There's not a lot of good going on here at this park. I'm going to be completely honest. There's not much theming to be found. There's a Batmobile in the Batman the Ride queue, which is nice. Like that's something. Also, the area by Sidewinder Safari is actually pretty nice. Like it's weirdly nice given just how not nice the rest of the park is. But it's also kind of a weird spot because there's really just like a playground and a wild mouse back there, but hey, like it's something, you know. It's kind of cool. Like the sign for that ride's nice, and there's some snake exhibits in the queue. But all in all, aside from that, there isn't much going on with theming, and the immersion here isn't great either. And if you don't know kind of the difference between theming and immersion, theming is obviously these kind of theme elements we're talking about. Immersion is more how does the park make you kind of feel like, oh, I'm just kind of in the park and kind of melt the outside world away. And there's different ways that immersion can work, right? Like a park can have a really good setting to where it doesn't even have to be themed to be immersive. Or if it doesn't have a great setting, it needs to put in some effort to kind of immerse you into it. And unfortunately, this park really doesn't do well there either. The park is right next to a highway and doesn't particularly make any effort to kind of disguise that fact at all. And so it's just not a very great place from an immersion standpoint. The layout is also a huge problem in this park. It's shaped a little like a C or maybe even kind of like a weird bent E, where you kind of enter in the middle, but then you have to go to the back of the park to then go around to the front of the park on either side. But then some of your main rides, like Medusa and Joker, are sort of right next to each other layout wise, but they're actually in opposite corners of the sea. And so to go between them, you have to actually go all the way from like the front corner of the park to the back of the park and then back to the front corner of the park to get there. And it's really, really awkward. Uh, and it's something that theoretically could be fairly easily fixed with just like a bridge or tunnel over or under the entrance plaza. All in all, there isn't a lot of great like landscape or anything. There's a low effort fountain at the beginning. There's a lot of not great upkeep things going on here either. Like on one of my rides, I got off the ride and they had a recorded soundbite saying, hey, like, you should upgrade your ticket today to a season pass. But this thing clearly hadn't been upgraded in years because they literally, it said, hey, update your ticket today to a 2021, or maybe it was 2023. I can't remember exactly season pass, but like this is June of 2025 that I'm in the park. So it hasn't been updated in years, and things like that really show that it hasn't been updated in years, which really, really, really drags down all the aspects of this. Food and dining wise, I haven't had much food at this park. And to be honest, I haven't spent a ton of time at this park. I've been here several trips, but I've never spent more than maybe 4 or 5 hours in the park. And so as a result, I haven't spent a lot of time getting food at this park. The food in general is not great. It's expensive, typical theme park food, and not well executed theme park food. So there's nothing super great here. The staff's fine. I don't have huge issues with the staff. They seem to be decently friendly. The ride ops seemed decently enthusiastic with their job, though there isn't great capacity and ride reliability is really terrible, which probably will come up more in the ride side of this. Uh, but all in all, I would say this park is really bad in this category. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 100, 10 being there are a couple little moments that are decently positive. The other thing I'll talk about in this kind of category is this park used to be a marine world park, and so it has a little bit of that kind of old, questionably ethical SeaWorld vibe to it, but has now been bought by Six Flags and run. And like, so there's animal exhibits, and the animal exhibits don't necessarily add a whole lot to the park. They aren't. When I was walking through recently, it seemed that most of them were actually empty. Maybe the animals are just in a back shelter somewhere, but they mostly seemed empty and didn't particularly look great, like several steps below a decent zoo. And so that really doesn't help actually with the vibes because animals in questionable containers is arguably worse than just probably better off having no animals at all from a vibe standpoint. But yeah, so we're gonna give it a 10 out of 100. It's really, really bad. 50's average, 100's perfect, 0 is horrible. I will give it a 10 because there are a couple little moments that are worthy of some points in this category, but in general, this park is really bad at this. The next part of this is obviously the identity execution section. And first off, when we're talking about this with this park, there is really a weird, awkward issue with this park, which is what kind of park is Discovery Kingdom trying to be? Like, I don't really know. At times, it's trying to be a classic SeaWorld park, zoo type thing with the animal exhibits that aren't executed well. And other times, it feels like it's trying to be a typical Six Flags park. And neither aspect of those are being executed to any quality level at all. And that's really, I think, a huge problem. Like, it feels like this park has a mixed identity, doesn't know which identity it wants to be, and ultimately doesn't execute either side of it well. And so, with that, I'm giving it a score of 20 out of 100. I think there's some moments that are okay. Like, I think there is a decent setup of attractions, which does help a little on this sort of execution concept, but in general, it's not great at the concept it's trying to be and doesn't seem to really know what concept it wants to be. Now, let's move on to the rides. So, the rides, as I said before, also have kind of two subhalves. The first half is the non coaster attractions. So, this is looking at how are the rides from a non coaster standpoint. I'm mostly a coaster guy, so coasters are sort of going to be half the battle here. And all in all, the non coaster attractions here are okay. There's nothing super spectacular here, but it isn't necessarily like missing anything too egregious other than maybe a drop tower or a quality dark ride. There isn't necessarily like a big standout flat ride in the park. Like there's a decent one of those swinging pendulum rides, and they have one of those sky screamer swing rides that's pretty tall, and so those are decent. There's an okay collection of kids flat rides in the kids section of the park, so it's definitely trying to some extent in this category. There is, I believe, a water ride, maybe two, but I don't think either of those were running when I went. Uh, I have to check to see whether that's one or two, but regardless, it wasn't running, so it doesn't add a whole lot. And that's actually something that's a big issue in this park is a lot of the rides aren't running, which we'll also get to in the coasters a little bit as well. But all in all, this lineup is okay. Like, it's nothing special, it's nothing terrible. Uh, and so I'm gonna give it a generous 50 out of 100. I think there's enough here for it to be a nice average non-coaster lineup, but there's definitely a lot of room of improvement here, but it could be a lot worse as well. And this definitely is a generous 50. I think there's definitely like it could really I think there's some good solid attraction types that are good to have in a non-coaster lineup, like a good dark ride, like a drop tower that this park just doesn't have that I think definitely hold this lineup back, but it's not the worst, and it doesn't seem that these rides in particular have too much difficulty from a reliability standpoint. Next, and finally, we're going to be driving into the coasters. And the coasters are definitely similar to the non-coaster rides. There's some good and bad here. All in all, Joker and Medusa are definitely your big standout coasters at this park. Medusa is a really solid, large B&M floorless coaster, and is a good, solid ride. It has some good forces. It's pretty smooth. It's long. Seven inversions is nice. Very impressive to look at. It's a good, solid ride. It's a B&M floorless, so there isn't anything like overly spectacular about it. Like it's a good solid ride, probably one of the better B&M Flores coasters out there, but it's still ultimately just a decent solid ride, not necessarily like a elite roller coaster. Joker is definitely much more of a potentially elite roller coaster. It's an RMC and RMC coasters, they're all really good. A lot of people consider Joker to be one of, if not the weakest RMC. I don't know if I would consider it to be the weakest that I've ridden. I think there's definitely at least one I can think of that is worse than it. And I think it's actually a lot closer to something like Twisted Colossus than people are willing to give it credit for. It's an RMC. Even the worst RMC is still a very good roller coaster because RMC makes absolutely incredible rides. This has some really good airtime on it, some good ejector moments. It has some good hang time over the inversions. It's well paced and relentless in all the ways you expect an RMC to be. It is a good, solid ride. Joker is the standout attraction of the entire park and is arguably worth a trip to the park in and of itself. Other than that, after we kind of pass Joker and Medusa, there is Superman and Batman. Superman is a good quality Skyrocket 2 from Premiere. It has the old restraints, which isn't nice. So, yeah, it's a good, solid attraction. It's nothing special. It's very much just an off the shelf, ultra portable model, but it does its job well as a decent supporting coaster. Batman is the first SNS free spin that I've ever ridden, and it's solid. There's like the flips are fun, the little moments where you kind of go through the little kind of U-turn down things that get you down the ride. The force on that are a little awkward, not necessarily the most pleasant experience, but not necessarily the worst thing I've ever experienced either. But like, it's fine. It gets very, very long wait due to low capacity, as well as the fact that every other coaster in the park kind of has bad reliability, which can result in a lot of times where you are at the park and like this is the only thing that's open, which is unfortunate. And that's really an unfortunate thing of Joker and Medusa and Superman. It seems that this park struggles to keep those running consistently throughout the day. My most recent trip here, I got on Joker in the morning right after doing Batman because there's a new coaster credit for me. And then Joker broke down right after I got on it. And then Medusa was down all the way until 1 o'clock, and then I got on Medusa. Like I literally rode like the second train of the day on Batman, the second train of the day on Medusa, and the second train of the day on Joker. But I did Batman and Joker like right after park opening, and Medusa was 2 hours later. Reliability is definitely a problem, and with that, there is, of course, also Flash would be a really great supporting coaster with Park. I've ridden it back when it was vertical velocity, and it's a really good ride. Unfortunately, it looks like this is a ride that is being removed. The train is still disassembled as of my trip, I believe. I didn't see the train on there at all, at least. And so this ride looks to be probably a goner, which is unfortunate because it is a really good ride. But I know that Legacy Cedar Fair and now Six Flags Entertainment Corporation probably aren't the biggest fan of these intimate impulse coasters and have been slowly removing them all. But that, it's unfortunate that's probably gone now and will not really be part of this. We can't really use it to talk about the coaster lineup here. Other than that, there's some decent family coasters in this park. There's a Spinning Wild Mouse, Cobra's an okay Zir Tavali model. There's a kids coaster. Uh, there's also Kong, and Kong is unfortunately just Kong is so bad that it really doesn't add to the coaster lineup at all, right? Like, other than picking up your credit on it, it's just, and even then, it's just not worth riding. In fact, the park almost would be better if it was demolished. Like, it's that bad of a coaster. It's my least favorite coaster of all time. Yeah, all in all, the coaster lineup here isn't the worst thing in the world. It's not the best thing in the world. There's enough numbers of coasters here that theoretically, like if you were to spend a lot of time here, you probably will be able to get a good diversity of decent lot rides. And there are a few good ones and a couple standout ones that are definitely worth a couple rides when you're there. Uh, but all in all, like everything this park kind of does is very, once again, kind of average in the coasters. And so I'm going to very generously give this also a 50 in the coasters and kind of let the reliability issues kind of. I'm not going to have the reliability issues bring this down. I think assuming these are running, it's about a average coaster lineup. Nothing special, but nothing terrible either. So all in all, that means that the ride score on this park is 50 out of 100. And the vibe score, as we said, is a 15 out of 100. So overall, the rating of this park is a 32.5 out of 100, with 50 being average. 32.5 is fairly bad. Like, this is a quite bad park overall, in my opinion. Uh, the rides are fine. Like, I don't think the rides are like there isn't any super egregious issue with the rides, but unfortunately, just every other aspect of the park is just not great. Personally, I would not recommend this park to anyone. I think if you're looking for the coaster credits, then yeah, absolutely go here. Or if you have a Six Flags season pass with all park passport, and you're already doing a trip where you're hitting up Knott's Berry Farm, Magic Mountain, California's Great America, then absolutely like tack this on. Like, it's free at that point. But like outside of that, I don't really see a great reason to go to this park. It just isn't doing anything super, super well and really has a lot of problems that are detracting from the experience overall. There's also an issue that I kind of mentioned before. Shade is a problem in this park. Like, for some reason, there just isn't any shade near the rides, which is really kind of problematic because like the only thing to really do in the park that's worth doing is kind of hang out by that DC Universe area with the decent coasters and hang out by Medusa, and you just kind of like bake in the sun if you're a non-rider hanging out with a group that's trying to get on those, which isn't going to be a pleasant experience at all. But yeah, this park really needs a lot of help. And until it does, it's just not a particularly great park to go to. But those are my thoughts. What do you think of Discovery Kingdom? Please let me know down in the comments below. And please like and subscribe. It really supports the channel as I am preparing to do more park reviews like this that hopefully some of those will be up by the time you're watching this video. And if not, you can subscribe and be ready to get that notification bell on, be able to hear about them when they show up. So yeah, thank you guys so much and goodbye.